Overwatch League 2019 is finally here, and I cannot believe how happy it makes me to say that. We made it, ladies and gentlemen, a 7-month-long off-season, and our reward is going to be some of the biggest names in Overwatch clashing in what is sure to be an incredible season. We saw every team take the stage at least once this week, and many questions were answered, but to go through all of them thoroughly would just take too much time. That's why I'm bringing back an upgraded version of the classic series that real OGs of this channel will remember, the 7-second summary. This series is inspired by Jello Apocalypse and his X-Reviewed in 10 words or less series, but to give myself a little more creative freedom and also to make a cool alliteration with the title, I'm reviewing each team in 7 seconds or less instead of 10 words or less. Anyways, here's how this video is going to work. I'm going to go through every Overwatch League team in alphabetical order and give a short statement telling you what I thought about their performance this week. As I'm going through the team, there will be 4 pieces of information on the screen. First is going to be obviously the logo of the team that I'm talking about, then I'll show you the results of their matches this week and my statement on them. Finally, I'll be giving them an overall score from 1 to 10, 1 being terrible, 10 being amazing. Once I've gone through all of the teams, I'll be taking the 3 teams with the highest and lowest scores and going through them in more depth, telling you why they were so high or so low. Finally, I'll point out 1 game per day next week that I'll be keeping a close eye on or I'm really excited for. If you only have the time to watch 1 game a day, these are the games that I recommend. Without further ado, let's get started. Out of the gates looking loose and confident. Genuinely impressed with how they did, given the pieces they had. Can't wait to see more of a Meng, the big brain hamster main. Way to turn it around. Props to AKM in the Soul game. That was ugly, but I'll cut you some slack for first game nerves. Again, you were expected to win here, but first game jitters happen, and you were really close. IDK is an insane Lucio, and I think more people should know that. You, I cannot excuse for first game jitters. Guys, you can't individually carry in GOATs. I can't wait to see how they look in a few weeks. How is Custa's in and out? They look surprisingly mortal. A statement win, but I don't want to start worshipping them after 1 game. 2 great wins to start the season, as clutch as always. I like the swaps, but I hope it doesn't end up hurting them like London. They look good, but they looked good at this point last year. 2 tough games, and Gamsu just got here. The first reverse sweep of the season. Way to hang in there. Runaway comes into Overwatch League with a win, I'm so happy. Introducing your newest player, the Horizon Tire.
Defeat.
Well, that could have gone much better. I think when you come out and the first thing that happens is that you get wrecked by Atlanta with a Torb comp, it really just sets the mood for the series. Genuinely, while the Reign came out of the gate swinging, the Mayhem looked like the exact opposite. Timid, unsure of themselves, unorganized, and the Reign just pounced on it. Here's a few stats. On Ilios, where the Torb strat was run, the Mayhem deaths outnumbered Reign deaths 38 to 12. The top elimination on the Reign was Defran with 31, and leading the Mayhem was BQB with 9. To be fair to the Mayhem, they did put up a good fight on Volskaya, and like I mentioned, I'm willing to attribute some of the performance issues to first game jitters, but in the end, this game was one of the most lopsided of the week. It felt like the Mayhem just weren't able to win a fight unless they invested at least 2 ults, and you just can't do that every time. We also saw a mysterious lack of Saya player. While I can understand why you wouldn't want to play him in GOATS comps due to his lack of flexibility, the Mayhem played a fair amount of DPS and 2-2-2 comps as well, and his McCree and Tracer would have been valuable, definitely his Widowmaker, unlike quad DPS comps. Was his Zarya really that bad?
Victory.
Then we go into the opposite side of the field and we see the Atlanta Reign. While the Mayhem often looked unorganized and unpolished, even a little nervous, the Reign came to the stage loose and confident, and it showed in their first 2 games. They did an incredible job exploiting the mistakes that the Mayhem made. For example, recognizing that they could solo grab Swan, who was completely out on his own, to tear apart an attempted spawn camp. Also the clip where Defran explained how he baited Poco into using his Matrix so that he could grab has been all over, and has really shown this kind of mind games that this team can pull off.
I look away, boom! Do you see that? Split second, look away. She baited, mind gamed. Boom! Then he uses his Matrix. Easy clap. Easy clap. Now we can grab after the Matrix.
I was also pleasantly surprised by the amount of team swapping that the Reign were able to do and still look about as polished. Like Dogman and Kodak, and swapping in Lair and Erster and Dako, and it all looked about as good. While it's not directly gameplay related, something I really like about the Reign is how animated people like Dogman and Defran are on stage. They genuinely look like they're having fun, and in turn it makes them fun to watch. While they weren't able to pull off the win in the end against the Fusion, the fact that they played them so close is enough reason to be paying attention to the Atlanta Reign.
Defeat.
Well, what a fall from grace, huh? From being crowned the champions of Overwatch League Season 1 to finding yourself in 19th place after Week 1 of Season 2. Thanks, Dragons. To be fair, the Spitfire didn't have an easy first week. The Fusion are the Fusion, and I think the fact that we didn't think the Eternal would be good at GOATs was pretty short-sighted. However, the Spitfire played GOATs really bad. It just felt like they played GOATs and ranked, wrecked with it, went, this is easy, and then never practiced it again. They were uncertain in their engages, their positioning was bad, their ult usage was just terrible. Like, we had heard that the Spitfire were bad at GOATs, but I didn't think they were that bad at GOATs. There was a bright spot last week when Guard swapped in to play Sombra. He straight up carried King's Row against the Eternal, but even that didn't last for more than one map as the Eternal were able to make the necessary adjustments. However, maybe it would have worked against a less organized team? I don't know. Leg Day, who casts and analyzes European contenders, actually did a great video for Elahel Esports dissecting the GOATs of the Spitfire and why it's so bad, so if you're interested in that, I'll leave a link to it in the description. Next week, the Spitfire have what should be a layup against the Justice before going on to face a tough opponent in the Spark. It'll certainly be telling.
Victory.
First place, and it must feel so good. The Fusion had a lot of pressure on them to perform this week. First, they had to go up against the Spitfire, who most recently rolled them in the Grand Finals, and then they had to go up and face a tough Reign team that was just full of upset potential. While it wasn't always pretty, the Fusion were able to get the job done. The Fusion showed a much better understanding of GOATs than the Spitfire did in their matchup, and while they faltered against the Reign, the Fusion are no strangers to a Mat 5 situation. In particular, Carpe has come out early as a frontrunner to be one of the best Zaryas in the league, because of course he is, and Boombox was really good at making plays on Zen. However, I feel like the most threatening thing about the Fusion right now is, well, think about the compositions that are played a lot right now in Overwatch. Of course, GOATs, Winston GOATs, Sombra GOATs, and then you have triple DPS, quad DPS, even some Sombra Pharah 222 and Dive. Can you think of any composition that the Fusion are bad at with their starting six of Sado, Poco, Carpe, EQO, Boombox, and Neptuno? I can't. They're so good at everything without needing to swap players in and out, which makes them a nightmare to prepare for.
Defeat.
All things considered, the Houston Outlaws weren't the worst this week. Having both of your games go to Map 5 is respectable, all things considered, and it shows that the Outlaws have the potential to pull off a good run. The problem is that both of the games that the Outlaws played today were absolutely winnable, and they just weren't able to clutch it out when they really needed to. A lot of people are pointing at Raucus as a problem for this team, and to be honest, I don't blame them. Shout out to Mr. Syfax on Reddit for putting together a really good collection of Raucus clips that I want to point out and play while I talk. Just take a look at the positioning of the Zenyatta in these clips. Essentially, he often just goes by himself on these flanks, or just doesn't push in with his team. I get that Raucus doesn't need to be up close as Zenyatta, but the fact that he's so alone makes it so easy for Note to pick him off every time. And the Outlaws lost so many fights to this, you can't win a Zen Goat's mirror battle without Zen. Raucus either needs to play more with his team, or his team needs to peel for him. Something needs to be changed about his mentality towards how to play Zenyatta, or the Outlaws have a glaring weakness that every team is going to be looking to expose. I also feel like this team needs to get a bearing on its DPS players a little more, or at least have Lynx or grind some Brig until it gets the positioning down. While I can see having him in the lineup in case you want his Widow, which is as good as ever, he looked much more uncomfortable playing Brig than Jake, overextending and getting picked off for it multiple times. People want to talk about the Outlaws having a Map 5 curse, but do you want to know the best way to shake off a Map 5 curse? Put the series away before you get there. A few tweaks and some better adjustments, and the Outlaws are 2-0 right now. That's why it's so frustrating to me, and that's why they are in the bottom spot this week.
Victory!
Then, at the very best, we have the Boston Uprising, who, in standings, are right in the middle, 1-1, 0 map differential. They were mediocre. Why are they the best team of the week? Simply due to the value that they were able to get out of the players they had. Since Color Hex was suspended for the first week, the Uprising only had one active DPS on the roster, so they had to get creative. They had Fusions, who had literally just been promoted to the main roster from Uprising Academy and arrived in America literally the day of the game, playing main tank, while Axiom tried to learn how to play Zarya in 5 days so he could flex over. That sounds like a recipe for disaster. The Uprising should be 0-2, no maps won right now, but it wasn't, which was insane. I mean, if you told me that Fusions was outriding Mono at times, AimGod was mostly keeping up with Jonak, and Boston's GOATs were overall stronger than the NYXLs, I wouldn't call you crazy after watching the Boston vs NYXL game. NYXL only had a definite edge when Meko flexed to Sombra. While I wasn't able to watch the game between the Outlaws and the Uprising, the fact that they were able to pull out the win after everything shows the ability to clutch out in high pressure situations. And the scary thing is that this team isn't even at full strength yet. Color Hex is going to be coming into the lineup next week, and I'm pretty sure Axiom will get the starting nod over Fusions just because of all the good stuff I've heard about him. And if he's able to outperform Fusions on main tank, I don't want to think about how scary this team could be. Frankly, Thursday is looking like it could be a bunch of washes. All of the games here have an obvious favorite and an obvious underdog, but if I had to pick the best looking game of that day, I'm gonna go with the Guangzhou Charge versus the Dallas Fuel. Both of these teams are working with a ton of potential. It'll be interesting to see if the Charge try to run a lot of DPS comps like they did against the Hunters, and if they do, how do the Fuel respond to that? On Friday, I'm definitely looking forward to the Shanghai Dragons versus the Boston Uprising. In all fairness to the Dragons, they weren't expected to win their first 2 games. If you asked preseason, this was going to be the game where the Dragons finally put a win on the board and end the 42-game streak. But after a strong first week and the opportunity to run their roster at full strength, the Uprising are looking like a tough opponent. On Saturday, I'll go with the LA Gladiators versus the Paris Eternal. Both of these teams have extremely passionate fan bases, which makes viewing very fun. I'm also interested to watch the Eternal again and see if they can pick apart the GOATs play of the Gladiators like they did with the Spitfire. The Lucio battle between Cruz and Big Goose is a very significant factor on this one. Pay attention and see who gets more value out of their boots. Finally, on Saturday, I'll recommend the Vancouver Titans versus the San Francisco Shock. This is just a fight between 2 teams that are expected to be heavy hitters this season, a ton of talent on both sides, and frankly, the first real test for the Runaway Core. And there you have it, this first 7-second summary of hopefully many this season. What do you think of the series, and how do you think I could improve it? Let me know in the comments section. If you enjoyed this video and want to see more, leave a like and subscribe, because with Overwatch League underway, you can expect a video from me at least once a week. Until next time though, that's all from me. Don't get tilted.